issue a 1099. Second mortgages. Now, second mortgages, a true second mortgage is a purchase money mortgage. It was used at the time to purchase the home. If you had and we saw a lot of these in the early days of the short sale tsunami, whatever you want to call it, they're still out there. We are oftentimes today are more apt to be dealing with home equity lines of credit, but there's still plenty of second mortgages out there. When you got your loan, and if it was described to you as something like an 80-20 or an 80-15-5 or something like that, then chances are very good that you have a second mortgage. Which is a good thing because, again, second mortgages, if the house were to go to foreclosure, they just get completely wiped out. They get nothing. The first mortgage, whatever property, whatever that gets sold for, whether it gets sold at the trustee sale or whether it gets sold as an REO, the first mortgage gets all of it. They get all the money. The seconds get zero. So they understand this, and generally, whatever the first mortgage allows, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, depending upon the size of the second mortgage, you know, they're pretty agreeable to that because their alternative is zero. And something, even if it's a couple $1,000, you know, something is better than nothing. So again, they typically understand this. They understand this clearly, and for that reason, they're they're relatively easy to deal with in terms of the negotiation process. Now, sometimes we hear the question, can those second mortgages, can they come after me after we go through the short sale process and after it's all done? Can they come after us? Well, the answer to that question is perhaps. Now, if you live in a recourse state, now all of our stuff is Arizona specific. So if you live in a recourse state, again, please consult a competent attorney. Arizona is a non-recourse state. That means by law, if the home were to go to foreclosure, the liens against the property, they cannot be pursued. Now, there is some debate among attorneys about whether or not this applies to short sales as well. Our position and the position of our attorneys, and of course, is that it generally does. Is that if they agree to if they agree to the short sale, they basically, because it's a non-recourse state, they're also saying we're not going to pursue you after the deficiency. Now, of course, we always make sure to get that stated in very clear language in the approval letters. So that's something that you want to make clear anyway. But here in Arizona, it's probably not an issue to begin with. Okay. Now, on a second mortgage, even if they were to decide to come after you, it's a very expensive proposition for the banks because basically you're talking about a lawsuit at that point in time. So they have to hire an attorney. They have to then get you served, get you into court, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And after spending all of that money, at the end of the day, what most folks would do is they would file bankruptcy, and then they would end up getting nothing anyway. So please understand that the vast majority of times, second mortgages are just going to do and behave exactly in the same way as a first. It's just not worth it to them. They're going to write off that debt. They're going to issue a 1099, and everybody's going to go on with life. Okay, so there's second mortgages. Now, HELOCs are different, and HELOC is a hybrid product that combines some of the elements of secured debt, which a first and a second mortgage is, and also combines some elements of unsecured debt or credit card debt, and it's kind of a hybrid of the two. And what's important to understand here is that a HELOC will go ahead and release the lien during a short sale. But because of the kind of product that it is and because of the language that is in the agreement that you signed, they still retain the right to be able to pursue you after after the transaction for the deficiency. Okay, and they do not have to go to court. Their ability to do that is written into the agreement that you signed. So that's important to understand. And the reason why it's important is you have to understand this ahead of time, so the deal could be properly structured, where you can get full release of this, even of the HELOC. Okay. Now again, what happens basically is their lien against the property is wiped out at the foreclosure, or if they agree to the short sale. But again, they retain their rights to collect on the deficiency, okay, unless they agree to release it. And again, what we're going to do, and what we always do with our clients, is we get this negotiated ahead of time. We get some cash out of the deal to the HELOC so that they can be satisfied, and they're willing then to write off the amount and not pursue you for the deficiency. One thing to keep in mind is that sometimes smaller local banks are harder to deal with in this regard than some of the larger ones. Obviously they have a smaller pool of funds to deal with, and so sometimes that can be a factor. But the key thing to keep in mind is you always want to know ahead of time if it's a HELOC, and you want to structure your deal ahead of time so that you have those funds available so that you can get the HELOC satisfied. Okay, and again, they don't have to sue for the deficiency. They do not have to go after it in court. They retain their rights because of the characteristics of the loan. Okay, and that's different from a true second. Okay, and that's the key point to understand here. If let me just say a point about this. Sometimes a HELOC will they're either going to want two things. They're going to want a cash contribution, or they might want you to execute a promissory note. We always try to take care of that and make that go away because we don't want that for our clients. But sometimes, sometimes these HELOCs can be difficult. It's not always a bad thing to go ahead and agree to a small promissory note. Let's say you owed on this home equity line of credit. Let's say you owed, I don't know, 70 or 80,000, whatever, and they want you to sign, say, a $10,000 promissory note or a $15,000 promissory note, make reasonable monthly payments over the next 10 years, and and then be done with it. That's not necessarily a bad way to go. Now, every situation is different. Everybody has to decide for themselves. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because really, if you think about it, what you're doing is you're converting a $70,000 or $80,000 debt. You're converting it down to, say a $10,000 or $15,000 debt, which there's quite a bit of difference there. And so everybody has to decide these things for themselves. Another strategy sometimes is the original lender. If you do sign a prom note, they're not gonna be the ones to actually pursue you. They're going to sell that note out into the market to some collection company. Then that collection company is going to be the one that you're going to be dealing with. Now remember, that collection company bought that note for pennies on the dollar. Pennies on the dollar. So it's oftentimes possible to then enter into a cash negotiation with the collection agency that has purchased that note and say, hey, I know you hold a note for $15,000. I will write you a check today for $5,000 if you'll sign off on it. And a lot of times they do, because it has to do with what's called a finance concept called the time value of money, which basically says that $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So even working with the prom note and working with that process, you oftentimes, again, and what this all about is about converting huge amounts of debt down to small amounts of debt. Either zero is optimal, of course, or a number that's much, much, much smaller and much, much, much easier to deal with for yourself and your family. Okay, so that's the whole goal of the whole thing here. So, again, working through these decisions, even deciding to do the short sale on your home. Of course, it's a difficult decision, and it can be a difficult process. We, of course, do our best to make it as stress-free and pain-free as possible. But we really understand that it's not the easiest thing to have to do. But keep in mind, and we always want to point out, that the reason why we do this is because you are making these proactive decisions today so that you can secure a healthier financial future for yourself and your family. and get out from underneath these massive amounts of debt that will just continue to haunt you and crush you for years to come. Whereas if you work through this process and you have the proper guidance and you have the proper insight, you can again either eliminate completely or reduce these amounts of debts to where you can really see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you can really begin to understand that you can have financial security and freedom for your family. Okay, that's the goal, guys. That's what we're here for. That's what we're always working for. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching the video, and please make sure to contact us directly with any questions that you may have. I'm Craig Akers with Omni Real Estate Solutions.